Until very recently, I genuinely thought that Wilbur Soot was some animated character. So, Tyler Catastrophe has become the internet's latest lol count, and I figured that I'm in a pretty good position to talk about this, considering. Yeah. So, as somebody who is also fat, trans, and Tumblr millennial coded, I wanted to talk about where, like, the valid criticism is. Because it definitely is there. This is not a Tyler Catastrophe defense video by any means, but I'm also aware of where the bigotry dog pile starts, and I also want to apologise for any background noise. I have a 7-month-old kitten. She is just fucking loving that cardboard box. So, what is there to fairly criticise Tyler Catastrophe about? Because there is more than a little bit. It all pretty much centres around his parasocial fixation on Wilbur Soot of the band Lovejoy. So Tyler seems to live in this like little delusional world where he genuinely believes like the fan fiction trope of, oh, if I just come across my favourite creator and then I'm friendly to them, somehow we will magically fall in love. This fixation has got to the point that he was creating. Hello. That he was creating auditions on TikTok where he would sing in hopes that Lovejoy would notice him and that he could somehow join the band. He said that he believes that he has a chance with Wilbur Soot if they met because he considers himself to be a fairly attractive guy. And the thing is that he has not met Wilbur Soot. Like, you do not know what this guy finds attractive. You do not know what he's into. I mean, considering the fact that he's only really been with conventionally attractive cis women before, like, I don't think I would be his type based on that, you know? Like, come on, guy, let's have a bit of perspective here. However, what I would consider to be the worst thing that Tyler has done regarding this fixation is the abuse apology. Essentially, Wilbur Soot's ex-girlfriend came out and alleged abuse. Yes, Kaji, it is unfortunate. His ex-girlfriend, Shelby, made a video where she essentially said that he would bite her quite often and do it to the point that she had bruises all over her. They created a safe word so she could say when it was getting too much, but he seemed to see this as a limit, like getting her to say the safe word was a challenge, which is all incredibly unhealthy, and yes, I would consider that to be abusive. And Tyler made multiple videos where he excused and defended this behaviour, essentially saying that it seems like it was just a lack of communication and that he clearly thought that it was consensual when it wasn't, and essentially kept Wilbur Soot fantasy safe. Like, that is the only way I can think to word. If Wilbur Soot was abusive, then Tyler could not comfortably fantasize about him. So that is why he went on this kind of military defense, trying to find any plausible excuse for the abuse that happened, so that in his mind, you know, Wilbur Soot could stay this fantasy version of him that he had built up and could stay like somebody that he was safe to simp over, essentially. Tyler Catastrophe also raised about $15,000 now, I think. It was a goal of $22,000, and he definitely surpassed half of that. So that he could move to Brighton in England. Okay, so as you could probably tell from my accent, I have a few thoughts about this. Everyone essentially figured out that the reason that he picked Brighton is because Wilbur Soot lives there. So when people are literally changing their lives, like making relocation efforts in order to come across their parasocial crush, that is incredibly fucking concerning. He also framed it as help a disabled trans man escape Texas, and while I will admit the UK is probably better than Texas, like, it is incredibly hostile against trans people right now. Incredibly fucking hostile. We are called Turf Island for a reason. But anyway, he tried to claim that one of the reasons that he actually wants to move to Brighton is that he supports Brighton. But he wouldn't even call it Brighton and Hove Albion, right? He called it Brighton. This is why I'm saying that I have stuff to say about this, right, as a British person. Look, our football teams, right? They're like cisgenders. You get assigned one at birth and then you stick to it until you fucking die. I'm from Southampton. I support Saints. I'm just glad we made it to the semi-final, to be fair. I'm not surprised that Man City beat us, right? This is how a football fan talks. They don't just spout out facts to prove it like Tyler Catastrophe did when he was proving it. Okay, and I know that I'm being petty by having issues with this, but it is all tied in to this parasocial fixation that he has, where he thinks that if he just gets to meet Wilbur, that somehow they're going to fall in love in a coffee shop AU or some shit like that. And this isn't the first time this kind of stan behaviour has happened. I have seen, like, One Direction fans say that they support, I think it's Dagenham and Redbridge because of one of them. You know, like, this isn't the first time I've seen Americans suddenly claim to support a football team because somebody British that they like supports that. Also, just because I feel the need to mention it, yes, he did previously claim to be Two-Spirit, and he has since apologised and claimed that he didn't know that it was Native American exclusive. It is not my place to comment on that, just saying that that's also one of the things that he has received criticism for. But ultimately, apart from, like, the abuse apologia, which I have, that's my main issue with him, right? Apart from that, the only person that's really going to be hurt by his parasocial fixation is him. Is he a risk to Wilbur Soot? There's a good chance he is. I'm not going to pretend that he isn't. Yes, this is very, very concerning, and yes, I think that the label stalker is probably apt here. But ultimately, apart from the abuse apologia, the only person that Tyler Catastrophe is going to hurt with this parasocial fixation is himself. Rearranging your whole life, having this end goal that's just like not going to happen because it seems that he believes that he can move to Brighton, join Lovejoy, fall in love with Wilbur Soot, happily ever after. But it's not going to happen. And he seems to be structuring and rearranging his whole life around that, like claiming that he is a one soul kind of guy and therefore cannot date anyone else because he's only obsessed with Wilbur. This is extremely concerning and it is very, very bad for his mental health. This ended up being way longer than I expected. I thought I could do like half of the video is valid criticisms and then the other half is like the bigotry and the dogpiling that I've noticed. However, there is a hell of a lot to criticise, so I had a lot to say, so stick around for part 2, where I will talk about where it stops being valid criticism and where the bigotry starts to sneak in. This is part 2 of my video on Tyler Catastrophe and where valid criticism ends and bigoted dogpiling begins. And before you think that this is a Tyler Catastrophe defense video, go see part 1 where I talk about the many valid criticisms that there are of him. So, as somebody who is also fat, trans, and disabled, I can see where the valid criticisms kind of start to blur out and start to mix in with cringe culture and then like outright bigotry. So, let's talk about it. So, I'm going to start off with like smaller criticisms of him that I don't really consider to be that problematic, but still a bit dodgy, and then I'm going to show how it's like progressed really bad. So, first of all, a lot of people say that his artwork and his beadwork are very bad. There are people who are like making accounts and slideshows of videos just to like show how his artwork hasn't sold in some places. I don't really think that that's a valid criticism. If he wants to make art, he can make art unless there's something inherently harmful or problematic about the kind of art that he's making. I don't really think that that is a valid reason to criticize him. Is his art good? What I think doesn't really matter. Art is subjective. Does he think that he's better than most people think he is? Who cares? Doesn't really matter. Not really valid. Secondly, people have been digging up posts from his Tumblr in order to find reasons to, like, dogpile on him, reasons to go, look at this, isn't this guy cringe? Now, down here, it's him going on about how he loves a recent Lovejoy music video. Does that link into his obsession with Wilbur Soot? Well, yeah, because it's their band, but at the end of the day, this post isn't actually really doing any harm. It's just a fan talking about how much they love the thing that they're a fan of. Now here, I wish Wilbur Soot would call me baby. Now, this is kind of tentative, is this. There's quite a bit I have to say about this particular post being called up. So, within the context of knowing about Tyler Catastrophe's obsession with Wilbur, it's definitely like it's an eyebrow raiser. I'll give you that. It is an eyebrow raiser within the context of knowing what we know now. However, is somebody posting that they have a crush on a celebrity like inherently harmful or even predatory? Absolutely fucking not. I mean, having a crush on somebody who is known to have abused his partner is definitely a fucking choice. It's definitely a choice. But it's not predatory in the way that people are definitely trying to paint it. I literally went to see Youngblood, and I jokingly made this post because I was making myself look nice, and I said, like, making myself beautiful just in case Youngblood looks into the audience and falls in love with a fat balding man 5 years older than him. Like, this was clearly a joke. But I, you know, because I am a fan of Youngblood, and I have seen, like, his stuff, and I follow his social media, I will see, like, you know, videos of him turning around and smiling, and then, like, women saying, oh, my ovaries exploded, and oh, I just got pregnant from watching this, but it's fine because they're cis women and they're considered attractive. You know, that's just a little bit of food for thought. And then this, people were laughing at the fact that he reblogged this. Um, this is just somebody being visibly queer, right? A trans guy, like, sharing a photo of Dolly Parton in an 80s film. That is just somebody being visibly queer. This is not something worthy of criticism. Right, now I'm going to hold your hand, and then I'm going to turn that hand around, and I'm going to slap you around the face. I'm going to go, why are you slapping yourself? Why are you slapping yourself? In a little bullying session as I say this, right? People probably wouldn't give a shit about Tyler Catastrophe to the near extent that they do if he wasn't visibly fat and visibly trans / queer. It just wouldn't happen. It would be seen as like cringy fangirl behaviour or something like that, and then it would be brushed under the carpet. People probably wouldn't have even noticed, right? And this is where we need to look at who is actually benefiting from talking about Tyler Catastrophe. And this is where the metadata and what's actually going on YouTube actually matters. So this was in the description of the cringiest TikTok stalker, Tyler Catastrophe. And then look at all of the hashtags. Lolcow documentary. We know what a lolcow is. It's somebody who is milked for lols. Essentially, somebody who is normally fat and neurodivergent and often queer is harassed endlessly because it's considered funny to do so. So this is not only encouraging harassment, it's also inviting spectacle, like, look at this freak, to be ridiculed. And then, far more concerning, we have other hashtags like predator catching, predator exposed, and then the names of people who have been in trouble for those sorts of things, like Jupiter, Nova. This is not happening in a vacuum. He is being placed alongside people who are a danger to children for a reason. I mean, when we see the same cisgender creators making video after video after video calling trans creators predatory, it's hard to not see the trend and to see that they are making money off of trying to paint trans people in the worst fucking light possible. And recently, I saw Tyler Catastrophe say that the transphobic comments are getting a bit much for him, and I can imagine that they are, because his videos, his most recent videos, have got millions and millions and millions of views. And I have seen people go, oh, I haven't seen any transphobia. Nobody's being transphobic when they're criticising you. First of all, come the fuck on. Criticising somebody for something that you would, you know, not really care about if it was a cisgender person, that is transphobia in and of itself. But just have a look at the fucking comments on these videos. He looks like everyone Fox News rages about whenever they talk about the left, and I genuinely feel like in this instance, they're correct. Basically, the classic, oh, this is the bad trans person that is all the stereotypes that does deserve whatever crap you've got coming there. Why are we calling that thing a he? It's very obviously a woman with peach fuzz thanks to taking testosterone, but he's not experiencing transphobia, right? And then comments like this around a trans man being on testosterone. Transitioning and growing facial hair, then choose to have a neckbeard is an interesting choice. The hair is just awful. Anytime I see neckbeards, I think of that fat ass pig from Angry Birds. Like, this is just body shaming. This is just hating a guy for how he looks. And yeah, whenever people say things like that because they think it's okay to shame the bad trans person, it's also saying that about guys like me and guys who want to go on testosterone but are afraid that they'll get body shamed for it. Like, this is the thing that's so frustrating, and this is why I claim that transmisandry is definitely a thing, because the amount of people that will act as if trans men are great, but like when they transition, when they go on testosterone, when their voice changes and they lose their hair and they get fat, they're all gross and disgusting and ugly and ill. Why wouldn't you want that? This is like a specific kind of transphobia that trans men experience, and he has got a shit ton of it. This person is terrifying, and I'm not referring to the homophobic kind of fear. She seems to be unhinged and a dangerous predator. I don't respect preferred pronouns for predators and abusers, so this shows that trans people only get basic human decency if they are considered good. You know, so not being transphobic is reliant on us having good behaviour. Disgusting. And of course, typical they, them. This is what's happening. People will claim that there is no bigotry and that it is just about behaviour being discussed, but then these will be the tags in those videos. These will be the comments. And then trans people will be the main character of every lol cow, look at this terrible person's story, despite, you know, God knows how many awful content creators existing at the moment. I mean, look at Vitaly, look at Johnny Somali, look at Natalie Reynolds, look at Chud the Barber, or Chud the Baker, whatever that guy who's racist is called. You know, but no, it's the trans people that you want to hyper focus on. Essentially, making cringy posts and cringy art is not a problem. Having a crush on someone while trans is not a problem. Having a crush on someone while fat is not a problem. But genuinely falling into a delusion with a parasocial fixation to the point that you are trying to rearrange your whole life and you are excusing abuse for someone, that's the problem. But that's not what people are fucking talking about. Hi, I'm Joey. I'm Cuppa Joey, your favourite kind of trans fat. If you got this far and you watched both halves, thank you very much. Please go ahead and give me a follow and you'll see more about, you know, being fat, being trans, and occasionally languages. Thanks.